Currently, I'm in the middle of reinforcing my subframe for the V10 M3. This one, yep, if you're new to the channel, yes, it has a V10. No, it is not currently started. It's in, as you can see, it's in there, but it's still under a lot of process, okay? For the subframe reinforcement kit itself, I went with a reddish motorsport for the entire video. You can click about right here. You can view that there. Next part of the agenda is for me to clean up this subframe and replace a few things, of which include the bushings themselves. Welcome back to Yev's Builds. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you to Jake at PowerFlex. Dude, he hooked me up with these bushings, man. Right here we have the full kit for the entire rear subframe, as well as a few other pieces. But mainly we have the diff bushings. There's 3. If you don't know on these M3s, there's 3 of them. And there's the actual subframe bushings right here. Those would be these. These, however, are engine mount bushings. Jake was very kind to hook me up with these engine mount bushings as well because, well, if you don't know, all of the clearances on the swap are pretty tight, to say the least. Particularly, I'm talking about the steering rack. The steering column and everything else is very tight to the headers. To view the entire video of that, you can click right here as well. In the time being, I figured I want my stuff as stiff as possible, but I also don't want to go aluminum bushings because that would make it completely solid. And I still want a little bit of play, a little bit of comfort. This is going to be mainly a track car, but I still want a little bit of comfort for this build. So I reached out to Jake and he recommended these. These are super dope because these are polyurethane bushings, right? They have an aluminum casing on them, which means it's not going to get squashed all that much, right? There's not going to be a whole bunch of play. But also, if they're not stiff enough, you can use these little guys to put them into these holes right here, and that way these rubber pieces right here add additional stiffness if they're not stiff enough. Because my clearances on the engine bay and everything else is so tight, I want mine to be as stiff as possible for the time being. If they're going to be too tight later on, I could definitely remove these, pop them out, put this little ring back on, and I'll have a little bit more comfort. But for now, I'm going to put these in, and I'm going to replace the engine mount bushings, and then we're going to get to the actual subframe and replace all those. So without further ado, let's get to work, baby. Well, now that these suckers are on there, they're gonna be nice and stiff, dude. This, I like this. Clearances are very nice. If anything, I'm gonna bend out this area of the frame just a little bit. I'll heat it up, tap it a few times with a mallet just to clear it up. Because this side, it's like a millimeter or 2 away from the actual frame, so I'll work around this. But dude, these look stunning, man. And they are solid, dude. They ain't moving nowhere. I dig this, and they look beautiful. Again, thank you, Jake. Now, let's move on to the actual subframe. To replace all your subframe bushings, your diff bushings, all and everything that you want to replace, clean it all up if you have to, you know what I mean? Ideally, that is the simplest way out. However, in my case, I am not going to quite do that. I have done this exact procedure and this exact reinforcement on my daily M3. For a more detailed video series, you can click right about here. I go more in depth into the subframe removal, all the bolts and nuts and everything like that if you want that side of it. However, for this build, I'm not quite doing that exactly yet. Of course, I'm going to be doing subframe bushings and the diff bushings on this build, that's without a doubt. However, for me, the next step exactly in this build is I want to remove everything completely, strip the entire underside, clean it all up, degrease everything, reprimer everything, repaint everything, and only then I'm going to start putting everything back on. But not even quite yet, still. The subframe, the diff casing, I'm going to be powder coating. I'm going to give it to a shop, they're going to powder coat everything, then I'm going to replace the bushings, I'm going to rebuild the diff, put new bearings in it. We'll see how the clutch packs are. If the clutch packs are good, then I'm going to keep them, but if not, I will definitely put new clutch packs on, just the way I did on my daily M3. You can click right here to watch that. Look at all this beauty right here, man. I almost feel bad putting this all underneath the car, but both subframes, engine mounts, and everything else is powder coated. Everything's ready to go. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna put the engine mounts back onto the engine and back into the engine bay. Let's see how it turns out, boy. And there we have it, boys. That is in and looking all pretty. Now that the rear subframe is powder coated, I can finally put the new bushings from PowerFlex. Again, Jake at Powerflex, thank you a ton, dude. You're hooking me up with these. Super pumped because these are almost the same that I have on my daily M3, except these are a little bit more track focused. As you can see, these are black edition. These, from what I understand, they're a little bit more sturdier, more tough, a little bit harder, and the ride will definitely be a little bit stiffer in these, but dude, this is going to be a V10 M3, a track focused V10 M3. Who needs comfort where you need performance, right? So these are going to be good enough for the street, but they are better for track use, and I'm pumped to put these on because I mean, dude, it's all matchy, bro. But here's the easy part about this. Installing new bushings like this, you don't necessarily need to use the refrigeration method. By that I mean it's about 86 degrees outside in Portland. The subframe is expanded. The metal expands a little bit. It's never noticeable to an eye, but it expands. Science. And it's vice versa. If you put a material into a freezer, into a really cold location, it actually shrinks a little bit. You'll never see it, but it does that. Believe me, it works, because I've done this exact job on my daily M3. What I've noticed with these bushings, they're actually pretty simple in terms of putting just the bushings in. What gets complicated is the rod that goes through these, right? So what I'm going to do is actually not put these in the freezer. I'm going to put these into the subframe as they are, and while I'm doing that, the rods are actually in the freezer currently shrinking. So that'll make it a whole lot easier. My theory on that is the polyurethane is not going to shrink. It's actually going to stay expanded since it's so warm outside, but the rod is actually going to shrink a little bit, and you know, it's going to make it a whole lot easier to put these in. So let's get to work, baby. And now my thought process is this. Before I put the subframe in, I kind of want to put it all together with the diff and everything else, all the control arms and everything. I'm still waiting for a few parts as of this recording currently. So what I'm going to do is actually take the diff apart, see how good the bearings are. If they're fine, I'll keep them. If not, I'll order some bearings, but I do have new seals coming all around. For now, let's just take it all apart and prep it for paint, dude. I want to repaint the casing as well, but let's just get on with it. And of course, can't forget to mark everything, because I mean, these shims right here, we cannot confuse them because they're different thicknesses. If you want to know more details about this kind of video, hit right about here. I've done a whole rebuild series on this diff exactly, but for now, we're going to be just marking these up, and we're not going to confuse anything, so nice. I've inspected the bearings. For the most part, they're completely fine. There's no scoring that I'm seeing. None of these journals have any scoring on them at all. Both sides including, which is a really good sign. I think for now, I will not touch the bearings. I will not touch the clutch packs. The only reason I'm not going to touch them quite yet is because we'll see. Once I put everything back in, I'm actually going to drive the car. Maybe I'm going to want to switch out the LSD to a different ratio LSD, you know what I mean? So I'm not entirely sure yet. If that's going to be the case, that's when I'll get new bearings. That's when I'll do all this. But meanwhile, these are all good. The races are all good. Oh, nope. The races are all fine in here as well. Everything's looking really good and smooth. So in the meantime, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this casing to my buddy's shop. We're going to push this pinion gear out. We're going to push that out because I'm going to replace all the seals. I picked up some new seals today, original BMW. These are the axle shaft seals. This is the pinion gear seal, right? These two O-rings right here are these little guys right up in here. Those got to get replaced. So I'm just going to do a quick little refreshing on this. You know, I'll get this casing powder coated. I'll clean this guy up. I'll get that sandblasted, make it all nice and clean. And I think we will be good to go. I mean, not much else to say, really. And now that absolutely everything is painted and looking nice and fresh, I'm gonna take off all this masking tape and I'm gonna give it back to ProTech for them to adjust lash with that diff. Because if you haven't seen my previous video, you can click right about here where I rebuilt this M3's diff. I've done everything, including replacing seals and bearings and all that, except for the lash setting, because I just don't have the correct tools, and I would much rather have a professional shop do this for me. Before I assemble it, I'm gonna put the diff bushings in. As you can see, this one's already in. I just did it really quickly. I didn't even actually freeze these at all. The bushings come in 3 different parts. Each side has 3 different pieces to them. There's the metal piece right here, and then there are the polyurethane bushes right there. So one bushing is going to be completely flat, right? The flat side bushing goes on the outer side of the rear cover. The concave side is going to have to go on the inside because this is where that metal piece is going to be pushed through. This one I put in without freezing these bushings at all. What I did was took the flat side bushing, stuffed it in there. There, that is in. It went nice and smooth. Then you flip the sucker and you take the concave side, put it on this side. Boom, that slid in. This piece, however, is going to be a little bit more challenging, and the best way to do this, if you don't want to freeze it or if you forgot to freeze, is you take a little rubber mallet and you stick this little piece right there. Make sure it's nice and flat and even. And then you're going to take a table, put a little cardboard on it, that way it wouldn't have too much rebound and it wouldn't scuff up the bushing itself if you care for it. And you're going to use the table as a flat surface in order to stop the bottom bushing from sliding out. And you're going to use the rubber mallet to smack the hell out of this metal piece right here. That way, if you use a rubber mallet, it doesn't damage anything, but also it does the job. Every part of the bushing is flat with the cover itself, and there you have it. The bushings are in, didn't have to use lubrication or even freeze them. Let's fast forward a few days, and the diff is now fully assembled. Man, again, Mike at ProTech, huge thank you to you. You came in clutch again. Helped me set the lash on this. Everything is looking good. Everything is solid. Now it's time to fill up the diff with some specialty BMW LSD fluid, and this diff is literally ready to go back inside the shell. And a whole week later, we got some more parts that have been powder coated. Again, thank you, Precision Powder Coating. Dude, these look phenomenal. So these are powder coated. All this stuff is powder coated. It's going to pair very nicely with PowerFlex. Jake, again, thank you again for sending me some more bushings for these rear trailing arms, man. It's just gonna look so dope. It's gonna be so dope. It's gonna feel so dope. I'm super pumped, man. Tyler at Precision Powder Coating also sandblasted these for me, these cups right here, just because they were a little bit nasty and they are exposed aluminum at all times anyway, so I'm not gonna paint them. I'm just gonna keep them a clean, sandblasted aluminum finish. So that's good to go. I do have new wheel bearings for these trailing arms, but those we're gonna install a little bit later at Daniel's shop because I don't have a press for this stuff. So let's just put the new bushings in for now. Just like that, we got all the new bushings in. Dude, and of course it didn't take just this. We froze them for a little bit. We used a rubber mallet, and we actually didn't have to use any of this grease right here, but all the bushings are in, bro. This is looking good. This is looking so good. Oh my goodness. And I kind of like the fact that it's just full black, you know? It's kind of nice. Also, hubs. I was able to restore mine. If you don't remember, I don't even know if I showed you, but these are pretty nasty and rusty. I really was able to clean them up. Used a brush, right? A metal brush on a drill. Obviously, you don't want to touch the area where the race goes on for the bearing. That we left untouched, but the surface area we completely restored, so that's really nice. I'm super pumped, to say the least, dude. Let's get on with it. Let's get more work done, I guess. Well, I have removed all of the fuel lines, all the brake lines, because I'm going to be rerouting all that stuff anyway, because this is a pre-facelift shell, right? So everything's removed, everything's repainted, everything's nice and clean, and actually this paint is very durable as well. It's very nice. I tried to scratch a little bit, it just doesn't come off. It doesn't come off to the bare metal that it was well, not the bare metal, but the, you know, the metal that was exposed prior to this. Dude, yeah, I'm really satisfied with this. I'm gonna get down to the actual transmission tunnel later on and do that underside completely, all the way down to the engine bay. And then the engine bay is actually gonna be repainted to the paint color of the actual exterior. So this is looking real fresh. I dig it, dude, I dig it. And now I can actually start putting stuff back on, and oh, bruh, it's gonna look freaking good, dude. With that being said, I think this video is gonna come to an end. I'm not gonna show you how I'm putting all that stuff that's been repowder coated and whatnot back in, simply because I'm still waiting for a few parts and I need to order a few more things before I want to put everything back on. So with that being said, I think this is gonna be a good way to stop, dude. If you're interested in this build, make sure to hit the subscribe, like buttons, dude. Just, I'm exhausted, man. Just, you know what to do, man. I know it's cliche, but you know what to do. Appreciate the support. Peace.